Hey, everybody. Welcome back to AI the podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Virginia Huling, and with me is my co host, David Maples. Welcome back,
Hey,
David.
everybody.
It's been a little while, guys. We took a little bit of a break and we are back. There is a lot going on in the world and in the news regarding AI and business and technology and just life in general. And David and I were talking the other day, and really in the middle of a conversation about three different artificial intelligence topics, kind of looked at each other and we're like, it's time for the podcast to come back. So here we are. Um, David, what do you think?
So, being this is the first episode we brought it back, we really want to talk about where we are kind of in AI today versus where we were a while back. So, the reality is right now is that AI has kind of hit that awkward teenage year phase. It's really hit adolescence. We're in a space where AI is no longer at the beginning of the hill climbing up anymore, and business owners are starting to introduce it and really don't really have real direction on it. I was at a conference a couple weeks ago, and I realized that I was talking about AI, and I realized that in the conference that the business owners really are just kind of they're running from thing to thing, and they don't really have a plan of action for how we put it in. So, kind of at the beginning, when we talked about this, as Virginia said, we were trying to figure out how to have just a conversation where we dissect what's happening in the news and kind of stick to what was originally kind of our core mission, kind of cutting through the hype to give business owners honest, actionable AI directions. So, without further ado, Virginia, do you want to tee up our first article where we can talk about this week?
Yeah, I think it's our first one is actually incredibly relevant. Oddly enough, OpenAI is jumping into the media network. I think as of the other day, OpenAI itself went ahead and bought a tech media network, which, it's like it's a business. It's buying another one. What's the big deal? Businesses buy media networks all the time. I mean, CBS is owned by people. The Walt Disney Corporation owns other ones. I'm going to need better examples.
Well, it was the TBPN, right? It's the Technology Business Programming Network. It was just a podcast show. It was hosted by a couple people. They'd interviewed a lot of people in Silicon Valley. But OpenAI, Sam, if you want to buy us, we are for sale. We would love for you to buy us. I'm just teasing. But the reality of it is that they came in and bought that network. So, Jenny, you brought this one up. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I thought it was really interesting because it's if you zoom out a little bit and you look at it, it looks a lot like large enterprises purchasing media corporations in order to have a bigger megaphone for their own messaging. I
You
don't,
mean like the Ellisons buying Paramount or CBS or Bezos buying the Washington Post or Elon? He
yeah,
bought this little
yeah.
thing called, what was that network called that he bought? Twitter? Yeah, anyway. But yeah, so I mean, it's more of the same, right? But I guess the question is, uh,
Why?
why?
Well, I mean, I think the short and kind of easy answer is owning your own media network allows you to control the messaging in a way that is closer to the source. So you're not having to rely on journalists getting the data and then interpreting that through their journalistic experience and then presenting the story. Instead, you have a direct conversation from those within OpenAI that want to craft the narrative and then putting it out there for consumption. So as those articles come out, you're going to see them factored into um, other articles, especially the media aggregators, the ones that put out articles from CBS and Reuters and AP News. And I'm certain you're going to start seeing articles come up from them. So what does that create for the consumers, David?
I I think the challenge with it is that it's very hard when they control the narrative, they control the media buying and the spin. I think it's very hard to think you were getting independent voices. It's one of the reasons why we thought AI the podcast in particular. I'm not saying this particular event what catalyzed what we were doing, but it's definitely something we factored into it, is that people need independent voices now more than ever. It's very hard to get objective advice or opinions from the company who controls the news desk and the opinion pages. And podcasting being it's kind of it's not a new estate now, but being it's a big estate, you're starting to see a lot of that. You're starting to see a lot of these tech companies in particular who want to control this narrative or this medium as well. And OpenAI, let's call it the way we see it, they have not had a really good narrative for the past 6 to 8 months. I mean, it's kind of been a challenge. I mean, Anthropic, Claude kind of stole the oxygen in the room from them. And they've been, I mean, Sam Altman, as much as he's kind of a magician at raising money, they're burning money. They weren't winning the enterprise customer. And I think the challenge here is that you lost the narrative. For a while there, Anthropic, Gemini would drop a model, and then OpenAI would step on their media press release. And it was like a thing where they would try to outdo each other or leapfrog each other. And they've kind of lost that for the past 6 to 8 months.
Which is kind of interesting because there's been a lot of other things that have come out in the news around these guys. A couple months ago, there was the whole shakedown about integrating AI into the Pentagon and what that looks like. And, I'm not trying to jump right into the politics stuff here, but when there's different layers of this AI stuff that we're discussing. We've got consumer layers, which are, hey, I want to use this to help me write emails. We've got business layers, such as incorporating it into your business, either workflow or incorporating a business entirely around it. And then we have layers of how this is going to change the bigger landscapes that we all kind of live on. So while we've got things like, OpenAI maybe is trying to control the narrative a little bit in terms of how it stacks up with its competitors, there's also the balancing side of it is they may want to control the narrative in terms of how the general global audience receives the business decisions that they are making for AI.
Oh yeah.
Well, especially since this is something that so few of us have any control over. And it's more like things happen and we just have to adapt to it, whether we want to or not.
They definitely have a lobbying arm in DC in the US, and they're spending a lot of money on that right now. So it's interesting, the fact that they're moving into the podcast space and they're trying to control the narrative. I think you're absolutely 100% correct. That's what they're trying to do. So for business owners, the challenge with it is they need a show like ours where we at least are, we just shoot it straight. We don't really have a dog in this fight. We do have tools we can definitely pitch on the show, but we'll disclose when those tools are owned by us, et cetera. I think ultimately what I see for business owners, and as you consult and do coaching with these companies, Virginia, you're definitely seeing that they need guidance. And they ask you all the time, what tools should I use? What should I be using? How should I be using this in my business?
Yeah, and I think the biggest commonality, at least with those answers, is there's a lot of different methodologies to get to the end result that you're trying to get to. The question is going to be, how does it work for your business? How does it work for what you're trying to do? And then does privacy or any of those kind of invisible elements matter to you? And if they do, these are things that people need to be aware of going into it. Again, one more layered reason why we felt that right now is the best time to bring back the show. So moving into this next article where we're talking about this trend slop, which, if you guys out there haven't heard some of these lovely phrases being thrown around like AI slop and trend slop, it's just kind of a throwaway term referring to AI and the massive quantities of content, either video or, visual or written content that can be created. And in this particular case, the trend slop phrase is really trying to encompass this concept that AI can give you a ton of information, but it's all kind of the same. Anyway, the University of Sydney ended up doing a research program trying to break down whether or not AI can replace human strategy consultants. And so now strategy, not just content, but now the strategy behind content that you create for your business is in the crosshairs. So that trend slop kind of phrase, David, you want to break this down for us a little bit?
Yeah. So in spite of what LinkedIn, quote unquote, self-proclaimed experts and influencers would lead you to believe, that they are saying like, oh, McKinsey, Boston Consulting Group, BCG, they're all going to be replaced by AI like tomorrow. Look at this. They're already replacing consultants. Look at that. And what they found is that generative AI models were kind of just being manipulated by the system. Whatever's popular is kind of being followed. So when they looked at different options for strategy consultants, it's like, what strategy did they recommend? And what they did is they would recommend, like, they wouldn't take a clear path. They'd recommend kind of both, but never, they would always equivocate and never go towards one. And you got to remember that models are kind of the average of intellect on the internet. They're just mediocre. They're the banal middle average. And the challenge with it is that, a lot of these strategy consultants are like, oh, I'll be replaced next week. And the thing is, it turns out, don't quit your day job yet. If you're a consultant, people really need your brain to direct them towards what they're trying to do. And this article bore that out. It really doesn't have the experience. They don't have the ability to make a good decision. I mean, there's a joke. We talked about that, Jenny. There was a South Park episode where it was like, what should I make? I have this new idea for a business. It's like, I'm going to make a salad made of meat. And I think ChatGPT or something says, that's a great idea. What a novel thing. People will love that. And the idea with it is that in that particular case, you could give it a terrible idea and it'll direct you towards it. But here's the same problem. The models do not have wisdom. They just direct you towards whatever seems to be popular. And then they kind of split the baby. They won't direct you towards a particular thing. And I think this is reflected, Virginia, in what you told me, is that they're going after everything because the business consultants are asking the models and they're saying, you should do everything with us. And the reality of it is, it don't work that way. It's not providing real returns.
I think this kind of comes back to a couple of things that we've discussed. One, these models are incredibly sycophantic. And if you don't know what that word means, go look it up. It's a wonderful word. It is so much fun to say, and it looks great when it's spelled out.
Why don't we define that for the audience?
Yeah, no problem. Basically, bottom line is that you could be driving off of a cliff, and these models are going to tell you that you're doing a great job. It's going to be waving flags for you.
It's the fastest way to get down there to the airport.
It's going to be building you up as you hurtle yourself off of a cliff. So that is one thing to be aware of. No matter what it's telling you, just take a second to take a step back and ask yourself if this is really a good idea. Trust but verify, okay? And I think the danger is that the enthusiastic responses that these models will give you as an answer can hijack our brains and almost convince us that, yeah, this is a great idea, even if it's not grounded, even if it's not verified, even if it's not something that's a great idea at all. So that's just one thing to be aware of.
I think the one thing about the article, like the one takeaway for me, it was like one of the in the article, one of the companies in there, I can't remember who it was. Go read the article. We'll link to it in the show notes. And one of them basically said is, have AI write out your strategy, and then they pin it to the wall, and they're like, this is what average looks like. Let's build the exact opposite of this, because this is what our competitors are doing.
Right.
And so the reality of it is that that's not what you should be executing on.
So that's my second point is the second thing to remember here is that regardless of what it's telling you, an LLM is basically Family Feud. It is the aggregate of everything it's received. It does not list out answers to questions you've asked and then determine what's the best one. But instead, the way that these things operate is it's spitting out details and information, and it's operating like a bell curve. So you are going to end up with the most average answer of all of these answers to the questions. And on top of that, it's not just you. You are asking this question. Your competitor is asking this question. Your competitor's competitors are asking this question. Your friends are asking these questions. And you guys are all going to be getting about the same kind of response. So you tell me how that helps you stand out.
I think the biggest thing here, Virginia, is something that kind of you said the other day, was that if that's what you're generating, then there's no competitive advantage for you. If that's what you're doing in your business, maybe you should not be doing this. And you told me that in the hands of somebody who knew what they were doing, the AI could be like a superpower. But in the hands of a person who didn't know any better, like if they're not an expert at business coaching or marketing or whatever it is, they don't know whether that advice is good or bad. And it's very different.
People don't know what they don't know.
Absolutely. Well, they used to question it. Like you would not give a new intern access to your bank account on day one. But yet we think, because if you'd had a really, really smart intern who sounded like ChatGPT or whatever it is, you would be like, oh, they must know something. But if you knew it was just the most average thing on the internet, then you probably would not follow that advice. Yet it comes across very polished. It comes across very authoritative.
Confident. Yeah.
And it's just not, if it's bad advice, you follow it anyway. You're like, man, that sounds really good. The thing is, I always challenge people when they're using AI. It's like, now go back and ask it why this was a bad idea. You are convinced that it's a good idea for 10 minutes. And then say, tell me why this is a bad idea. 10 minutes later, you'll be convinced the exact opposite. And by the way, you're not any wiser. This is where you really do want to talk to a human who has expertise and experience. And this is not just me shilling for what we do for a living or a business or trying to protect myself. This is the reality. Go out there and get there. Do the most average thing. You and every other average person. You're not going to be exceptional in the business if you're just following the average advice of the AI. It might be better than what you can do on your own. But this is why you hire people with those expertise. You expect them to bring something and some experience to bear and look at the things or think about the things you haven't thought of, which are not necessarily in that meaty middle of the bell curve. So it's kind of interesting where we're at. So I think this is the one I really wanted to talk about today, Virginia. So
So now that we know that AI isn't just this magical wand that's going to, bippity boppity fix everything, we're going to be let's look at some real world operational walls that we're hitting this week.
Well, that's the whole thing. Now that we know that AI is not magic, although bibbity bobbity boo sounds awesome, I want to talk about the hard realities of scaling AI. And this is where OpenAI, which is literally burning billions of dollars a month.
Wait. Before we jump into this, for the audience, can you define what you mean by scaling AI?
Okay. Okay. I got you. So what's happened is for a while, there was this magical, it was an observation is what it was. It wasn't magic. It wasn't a law. And there were these things called the scaling laws. And the idea was, is that as long as you provided more compute, so you applied more processing power into processing what the AI is coming up with and fed it more information and gave it more power, that it would continue to get better and better and better and better. Now, if you go back 3 years ago, if anybody used ChatGPT 3 or when it originally came out versus where we're at now, you'll notice that there were these huge jumps. There was a huge jump between ChatGPT 3 and 3.5 and 3.5 and 4, and then something happened. We kind of hit a wall. Now, if you believed the hype bros, there was this idea that we were going to continue on this exponential curve, that GPT-5 would be 100 times better than that, and GPT-6 would come down the road just like clockwork, and it would be 100 times better than that, and that didn't happen at all. What's happened is that and this is where it's a little hard. There's a thing called an S-curve, and it's this idea is that eventually you get closer and closer to this exceptional ceiling, and it slows down as you get closer to that, and then it follows just about everything in the business. And the reality of it is that really didn't happen. And so for business owners, if you could just rely on, oh, it's going to be 10 times better. Now it is getting cheaper. The machines are still following Moore's law in a way. It is getting cheaper to do these things because the processing power is still getting better, but the machines are not getting exponentially smarter now. So what's happened is that there's still a massive cost on these things. OpenAI, Anthropic, all of these labs are losing a lot of money. And we're talking about a lot of money. It's like, on $20 billion a year in revenue, you're burning $70 billion in money. And I don't know many of you small businesses out there who could do that.
How about $1 million a day?
Yeah, no, and that's a perfect example. And I guess you're teeing up the next article, right? So Jenny, tell the audience, what did they kill?
They killed Sora.
Who killed Sora?
Oh, the company that created Sora decided Sora was too expensive to keep running. OpenAI killed Sora. They were burning about $1 million a day in video AI generation, and they made almost nothing in return from that business venture. So they killed it. And they killed it. Here's the tea, ladies and gents. When we found out about it, we about an hour before the entire public found out about Sora being 86th, Disney, the Walt Disney Company, found out about it too. And what's interesting there is that they had a billion with a B dollar deal teed up and ready to go with Sora. And they found out about an hour before the rest of us did.
So just for small business owners out there, this is a way to highlight what we call operational risk. If you build your entire workflow around a single highly subsidized vendor tool, if their underlying economics fail, then you're left basically stranded. And so this has happened to a lot of people. There was a German professor
who Facebook ads.
Well, there was a German professor who put his entire curriculum for 2 years and built this whole thing for his students and everything else on OpenAI, built it with their GPTs, and then he didn't want all that stuff to be shared and trained from. He turned it off, and it deleted everything. And so the challenge with it with some of these tools, this is actually why in one of my other episodes, podcast called The Buck Stops Here, I talk about having agnostic workflows, which means you aren't tied to anything. It doesn't mean you can't use tools. But the reality of it is when all your eggs are in that basket, if they take the basket away, the eggs are gone too. So what happened with Sora, and by the way, I did like making cats playing instruments on people's front porch. I thought it was really cute. It was funny. It wasn't a business is what it really came down to. And it wasn't a social media platform. And I think it's also kind of indicates where OpenAI's head was at for the past, 8 months. They were chasing all these different things. I mean, they're going to have a device, Johnny Ive. They're going to have a device coming out. They were going to be, Sora was going to be the social media application. They kind of are doing consumer application stuff. They're going to do all these things, and it's like jack of all trades, master of none. And then at the same time, Anthropic's been eating their lunch. So for small business owners, why is this important? Well, you're not going to be able to use Sora here. They're shutting it down very, very shortly. But the reality of it is that if that was a major thing in your workflow, and I know companies who are using it to generate kind of these AI slop videos and things like that, and they're left scrambling to try to find a replacement. And the question is, what do you move to with that? What is your solution on that? And the answer is they don't really have one yet. But it's a real challenge.
I thought it was interesting that the order came down from Sam Altman saying to stop the compute and refocus, because they've done that several times throughout their existence. So it does kind of bring into question, like, what are they chasing? Are they chasing a vision that they've got, or are they chasing how they can get that next influx of capital?
Here's a hot take. Maybe they're doing the same thing that other Sydney article said to do. Maybe they're asking AI for direction and it's not going to anything. It's giving them like 10 choices. Like, you should pursue all of them. So
wait a minute. Man creates AI. Man uses AI. Man,
AI destroys man's business.
Yeah, puts their own AI out of business. There you go. Due to mediocrity.
Man is left drawing things in the sand. I don't know.
Artists are needed again.
So thank you. You're welcome, artists. You all have jobs again. So, but it is really interesting to look at this stuff, and we are seeing these things blow up. Like, it is amazing how quickly this stuff's happening. And I think for business owners, if they're left not really sure where they should go, corporate America in particular has really had a hard time to adapting this. This is one of the issues that Sydney article kind of pointed out, was that if they're pursuing all these avenues, like, okay, there's cost takeout and cost efficiencies. That's one piece of it, right? But differentiation is this other piece. And it's kind of hard to stand in both those things. I do think you should pursue those with different business units. I think if you're a large enough company, there's ways to go after there. But I think this is what was the big thing I noticed with the small business owners. They're trying to use AI for everything, and it's not great at everything. If you are able to do something well in your business and it can augment what you do, that's an opportunity. If you can use it to remove real costs, that's an opportunity as well. But when people are trying to say to use it to replace all your contracting, I think I heard 2 ads this morning for like, replace your lawyers with this contracting tool. It makes errors 10% of the time. 10% error rate. And there's nobody to sue.
Not just that. I mean, you've got attorneys who have used it and have been, slapped
Disbarred.
back by the courts.
Disbarred.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's totally a thing.
If the trained professional is having a hard time using this for their industry, then let's just keep an eye on it. Okay.
I have to defend the lawyers. As a lawyer myself, I have to say, like, the good lawyers are being kind of smart. Well, I think in most cases are being smart about using it. There's a lot of bad lawyers. I'm just going to say that. There are. And but it's okay. You need to review what's being written.
So that's the economics of things. Let's talk about the physical limits that we're seeing.
You want to talk about energy and water, maybe?
I do.
Okay.
Because here, and I'll tell you why. Out and about in the world, especially over the past 4 weeks, I go to a lot of business meetings. I'm in a lot of different networking kind of environments, and I'm listening to the chatter. While all of us are trying to figure out how to utilize this in our lives, I hear a lot of people kind of just bubbling up with little questions like, yeah, I heard there's a data center they might be putting in. I wonder what that's going to do for my energy rates. I wonder how that's going to change my water bill. I wonder how that's going to affect prices of other things that surround it. And I'll be straight up, I don't feel like we're getting a lot of really good answers from anybody, or a lot of answers at all from anybody in this area. This very much feels like things are being built and paths are being laid, and none of us are getting any kind of indicators of how that's going to change our money situation on things. So could you for a minute talk about some of the physical limitations on this?
So there's a lot of misinformation here, and there's a lot of politicians trying to score points about this. This is both wildly misunderstood, wildly overblown, and missing the point of the entire exercise. Bernie Sanders wants to put some kind of moratorium on building data centers until we have AI governance in place and all these other things. That is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard come out of that man's mouth. And it's not that I think his aims are correct, but how he wants to go about doing it is completely devoid of any recognition of what's happening in the economy right now. Like, it's not just impractical, it's not workable, it's a soundbite, and I think it's really, you're better than this, Bernie. The reality of it is that data centers are going to come whether you like it or not. Most of the gross domestic product in the U.S., the stock market last year was propped up by data center building. If you take data center building away from the economy, stock market ain't doing so hot. Okay? So This AI Yeah, absolutely. It was most of the growth in GDP, gross domestic product last year. So when you really break this down, it's like, hey, the economy underlying this in certain places in the United States, like 37 states are already in recession if you take out data center building. So
Oh,
it's gonna happen whether you like it or not. I don't care. We're talking about trillions with a T of dollars and capex and everything that's supposed to happen there, right? The challenge with it is that there's two things. One of the articles Virginia sent over to me today to review before this today talked about the fact that a lot of the actual cost for data centers might be being over projected by the energy companies by a factor of 3 to 5x. So what, and I heard it last week. Sorry, I heard it last week. I heard someone say from a solar company saying it's predicted that energy bills are going to increase by 10% per year over by 2030, et cetera. And the
I have
reality of
heard
it
that.
is,
I've heard that from other people.
the problem with that is it's not really wed to reality. It's partly a money grab from everybody involved. It's the energy companies can hide behind and run behind this. The reality of it is energy data centers in 2023 accounted for 4.5% of the grid production. 4.5% of all the energy in the United States went to power everything you need because you love Facebook, Google, Instagram, TikTok, whatever in the United States. 4.3% of it went to power these data centers. By 2030, 2031, that's estimated to be 10 to 12%. Okay. That does not mean that energy prices should increase 10% per year for the next 5 years. It's just not wed with reality. The reality of it is that somebody's making a ton of money on this, okay, and they're using this as kind of a smokescreen for what's really going on. Here's what's really happening. Data centers are going to happen whether you like it or not. I don't care. You can do the NIMBY thing, not in my backyard. They're going to build in Midland, Texas. They're going to build somewhere else. They're going to add power to the grid. It doesn't matter if they bring on turbines, if they have to bring on ship engines, if they're going to have to build windmills, solar, nuclear. They're going to build all of it, whether you like it or not. It's going to happen, period. I don't care. You can debate this all you want. There's going to be no government moratorium and shutdown on this. They have 4 to 10 lobbyists for everything else in Washington. I think the thing we heard recently is that AI lobbyists have more money in Washington. It's going to happen. And you tell me you want to shut down everybody's 401k by not having the stock market perform well? That ain't going to play well either. So here's where we're really at. What is the actual energy cost? It's a lot less than what a lot of the people are making you think that it is. Because if we're only going from 4.5% to 10 to 12%, that's manageable over the course of 5 years. Then why are we getting a 10% run up on cost? That's something I'd love to see investigated. I'd really love to know why. And remember, regionally, that won't mean everywhere. Some places are going to have huge run-ups in cost depending on the energy centers. Some aren't. And I think it's a very easy thing as Americans to say, we think those business owners should pay for that cost and increase in energy. But we're going to end up holding the bag for it. Business owners get used to it. It's going to go up. Just factor 10% per year onto your bottom line, your P&Ls on energy costs every single year. Whatever you're spending now, it will go up. Here's the other thing to know about it. The water usage, localized on a localized basis, it is a problem. In the aggregate, when you look at like a big industrial basin and stuff like that, as long as you're not building out where we're using a lot of her farmland and other things, probably manageable. However, there will be individual cases where there will be massive gnashing of teeth and everything else over for a brief period of time, et cetera, as far as that happens. The big thing I think that people need to understand is a couple things are going to happen, and this is the one that people are missing. The costs of every computer, every iPhone, every technology product you buy will go up a lot over the next 5 years. Energy's easy because you get the bill every month, right? But the next iPhone will cost, not the next iPhone, but the next generation, they already have stuff built into their supply chain for that, will cost $250 extra because the RAM is that much more expensive. Do not assume the computer you buy next year, usually it's more performative for the same price point. Probably we've seen the end of that because all of the money is going after these chips. Absolutely.
So
all of the money is going after these chips.
So you're saying the chips, not just the energy usage, not just the water usage, or utility kind of things, but you're talking about the resources that go into making the chipsets that our computers use every day to get us online and do our jobs, etc., or our phones. Now we're competing for resources with AI companies because they need those chipsets too. in order to power the entire backbone of their business.
And they will pay more for it than you will as a consumer.
Oh, goody.
They'll pay 5 times more for it than you will. We've already seen RAM chip alone prices. If you tried to buy 64 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM, now, by the way, business owners, that may be technical, 64 gigabyte stick of RAM. You bought it last year, it's $150. You try to buy it right now, it's $500. Same stick of RAM. I literally, we have a small data center.
RAM has not had like this big, like, oh, we figured out a new way of doing RAM. It's the same stick that you bought 3 years ago.
Or last year, yeah. So we have a data center. I mean, Catapult, Calray, our sister, our technology company has a data center. Every computer, every server we build right now is 30 to 50% more expensive. Why? Because RAM chips are more expensive now than they were a year ago. Every single one of them. And that's the whole thing. You want to get video cards, new video cards? If you're a gamer and you can't buy a new high-end video card right now, blame that cat video on somebody's front porch. That's why. And look, this is the whole thing. So it's all tied together. And I'd be glad to recommend, I could talk about this at length. There's a lot more here than what people know. But the big thing is NIMBY, not in my backyard. Somebody's like, oh, a data center is coming to town. You can work this out, y'all. You can make them have to pay things to be in your area. But you have a lot of opportunistic politicians who want it for the soundbite. It sounds good. Now, by the way, if you're Meta just had a lot of, I don't really know what happened. Oh, wait. They lost a couple of those cases. It turns out you knew you made an addictive product and people have been killing each other, killing themselves because of it, right? You knew you created a product that was a problem. You're like big tobacco. Do you want them to build in your backyard because of who they are? Now, they're going to build, America is a big country. You're going to build somewhere. I mean, you can build in Midland, Texas. You can build in Iowa. You can build wherever. And just because you don't want it here doesn't mean it's going to go away. They're just going to move to another pro-technology community. So if you want them to build here, I think there's a smart way to have that conversation. Maybe you should talk to companies you think who are ethical and honest about this. Maybe you like Anthropic. Maybe you like their stance against the Pentagon. I know we're going to talk about that. There's a way to do this in a responsible way. But the sound bites we're hearing coming out of DC right now are like, oh, moratorium on data centers.
That's not going to work.
It's not going to work. It's not going to happen.
Well,
not going to happen.
That's government versus business then. And those two, business is going to continue on. I mean, as long as they can, they're not going to stop.
I think the big thing I want people to say is do not assume that these AI tools will continue to get infinitely cheaper. Right now, we've already seen, and it's not in our list of articles this week, we've already seen from Anthropic, they cut down last weekend. They're going to cut use on Claude. They cannot keep subsidizing this. Remember when Instacart would deliver everything to your house for free or for like $5 or whatever it was? You got an Uber ride for $2 and it went up to $30. That's what's going to happen with all your AI costs.
It felt like the future.
Well, here's the thing. Everybody's using AI, and it's really, really cheap right now. And the reality of it is that at some point they're going to stop subsidizing this. You get used to using it. You build it in your workflow. You need to think about the costs on this and what this will be. And I do think people need to buy the actual paid units. But anyway, you can't just assume that these tools are going to get infinitely cheaper. There's going to be bottlenecks in supply chain. There's going to be regulatory bottlenecks on build out, and they will get passed down. And the cost for any API you're calling on and software as a service tools that you use in your business. And you need to be ready. You need to budget for price volatility. If you're paying $500 a month for your AI needs at your small business or $20 a month, I think if you're smart about this over the next 2 years, you need to go and figure that's a factor of 10x. If you're paying $500 a month, expect it to cost you $5,000 a month in the next 2 years. By the way, still cheapest employee you probably have.
Hey,
you're paying $20
David,
a month, expect it to spend $200. What's that?
So do you have any advice for a business that is suddenly just heard that and they're going to now have to factor in for $5,000 a month for energy bills?
If you're using $500 a month in AI, then you're probably a pretty serious user. Then you need to look at your costs on that and you need to go and just set that money aside for a rainy day. Put it in some kind of like short-term investment strategy. I'm not a financial advisor for you, but put that money aside. Do not just spend it. And don't be surprised when these prices go up because they will, and they are. You have to go and just budget for that. Like right now, it's not here. But if you don't, so here's the thing. let's say you're not ready for that price run up and you depend on it in your business right now.
Hmm.
What's your backup plan? You let
That's
go of everybody to run on a super lean budget, right?
that's the use case I want to address is for people who are like, oh, I've got this kind of working along and this is great. And they're in those early stages and trying to get everything, ironed out.
You are buying subsidized steaks right now, my friend. The steak is the price of a McDonald's hamburger, and when it goes up to what Ruth Chris is going to charge you, do not be surprised. It is going to happen. It's going to come. It's not going to keep dropping forever. These prices are going to continue to go up. And by the way, we haven't even talked about like supply chain, geopolitical risks. Here's the thing. If you are reliant upon a cost, right now, you as a small business owner, you do budget for the price of salaries going up, don't you? If you have an employee and they make $50,000 a year, you figure that next year they're going to cost you 55 or 53 or 54. You know that that employee over the next 5 years will probably cost you 65 or 70. If you're not actually performing your due diligence and doing a pro forma. You're not really thinking about the cost of your business. Assuming that all your costs will stay flat or decrease is missing the reality that you are facing.
So let me backtrack this just a tiny bit. In addition to anticipating some of these changes, what are some other ways if people do have concerns about these data centers or they want to exercise their civil structure? What can people do?
Well, you can.
I know you can't stop it, and
Yeah.
moratoriums are probably not going to happen. But
I think you
how can
probably.
myself as a citizen do anything about this?
I think the smart thing is to not just tell people not in my backyard, is to find out a way to move this forward. The reality of it is, if they have really done some due diligence and move forward with a secondary site, you want to figure out a way to be involved in that political process. You want to know what they're going to do, and you'd like to find out where it's going to happen. It's going to happen somewhere. And the reality of it is, if we all did the same stuff in our backyards, then we could help provide some unifying structure over how this would work. The reality of it is they just pick up and decide to move elsewhere. I mean, if there had not been that appliance plant in Memphis that had shut down, Elon would never have put his Colossus data center in Memphis, Tennessee. Never would have done it. And I think he regrets it right now. But at the time, there were questions about what the cost of energy and compute would be in Texas. He'd be putting it in Texas. But the reality of that's where he put it. There was a lot of excess energy available on the grid. I think they'd misread what had happened in Texas a little bit. And they thought there was less available energy there. And they also believed in the scaling law narrative, when they started working on this a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. And they put a whole bunch of gas turbines behind the meter. There's a whole bunch of stuff they did there. Generators behind the meter, sorry. And they did that. Now, the reality is that happened. I do think it's very important. We were in Louisiana for a long time, and there's a place called Richland Parish in Louisiana, and Meta's putting in huge data centers there. Some people there are really concerned, but that's kind of, as the French would say, a fait accompli. It's already a thing decided. It's already been decided on. They're going to build that out, and the people in the state are going to pay. It is the poorest per capita county/parish, that's what they call counties in Louisiana, per individual in the United States. It's one of the poorest places in the United States, and they're not building it there just because they could. Not because it's got access to a really fat internet connection and everything else. They built it there because it was super cheap. And the people weren't necessarily paying attention. Now, do I think it's a bad thing for Louisiana? I mean, they're going to have a lot of construction jobs, 5,000 construction jobs in that small parish for the next 5 years. But when those things come online,
5 years?
50 people run it. I mean, it's not a huge job, but, take your money and leave. I don't know. The reality of it is you have to be aware that you have to get comfortable with change right now as a small business owner. Small, medium, even an enterprise business. You have to kind of plan for these things, and you have to kind of look and see what the road ahead looks like. And then you have to mitigate your risks. One of the way to do that is to put money aside, knowing that these price points, maybe if I'm wrong, that's fine. I'll eat my own dog food. That's fine. But if you put that money aside, you're better off than being caught flat-footed. Imagine an employee came to you tomorrow and said, I'm not going to work for you anymore. Well, you could just turn it off and move somewhere else, right? You could find another employee. But if an AI came to you that you come to rely on and you don't have a backup plan in place, you have two choices. You can either pay the 10x increase in costs, so your $50,000 employee is not going to cost you $250,000 a year, which most small businesses could not afford out of nowhere, but you don't have a plan. The point about this is, and Jenny, you do consulting and coaching with people all the time, is to understand what the risks are and to prepare for them in some small way. So you can say, if this does happen, what do we do with it? And so I think putting the money aside, having that money put into some kind of short-term investment that you can pull it out of. And look, if I'm wrong, you're earning money on it anyway, and you can reinvest it in your company. But you want that somewhere else so you have it. And if I'm wrong, you'll have that money, and 5 years from now you can say, David, you were an idiot. Totally fine. But if I'm right, you were going to be better prepared to pivot and take advantage of that when that change does happen, because your competitors, a lot of them won't prepare. Probably 80% of them won't be ready for it. And it will blindside them. And that will create an opportunity for you to exploit in the marketplace. And that's what you need to do. I'm here just to give people the information. Do with it what you will.
Okay. All right. I want to talk, so we've talked about the economics of things, and we have talked about the physical limitations. Our next article, let's talk about some security. Okay, this is a bit of a double whammy. Anthropic accidentally leaked its own Claude code, details of a massive model update, and details around a brand new model, Mythos, were also leaked. So Anthropic kind of showed its hand very, very soon. How does that change things, David?
Can I break those two things apart? Because I don't believe
please.
They're both accidental.
Yeah.
I don't believe for a second that news about Capybara and Mythos, Capybara, that's kind of funny. That's that.
Yeah, that's their internal name. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the South American ant. Isn't that like that big animal in South America?
It's the most friendly animal on the planet. It has no enemies.
Yeah, so we should put a picture of it on this episode of the show. We should just do that.
Do you think they did that to make people like go, "Oh, it's so cute, let's use it"?
No. I don't think that's at all. I mean, there's a question about that. And there was also a question if the leak was actually an April Fool's joke. They said it wasn't. So two things. One, Mythos is really good press for Dario Amodei and Anthropic, right? He has released, now, in case you're listening, let me
talk to us. Yeah, talk to us about Mythos and what it is.
Okay, Mythos is in a world where we release a new model of Anthropic, cybersecurity no longer is effective. We can work 24/7 and hack any of your systems. Are you ready for Mythos this fall? Coming to cracking all of your codes near you. Mythos! Invest in our IPO. Anthropic. Available now. Call your financial advisor. This is not financial investment. Anyway.
That's what they nicknamed Capybara?
No, yeah, it's Mythos, basically. By the way, that's the underlying. Okay, so I don't know if that's the reason or not. But here's the point. The point is, supposedly, Mythos, and I don't believe this was a mistake. It was an accidental blog post that somebody posted as posted instead of draft. Look, it's either an accidental marketing coup for you, because guess what? No one's talking about, like, what OpenAI, we brought up the Sora thing, and no one's talked about OpenAI in like 10 days. Sam Altman is probably having trouble sleeping at night. He's like, no one's talking about me. What do I do now? The reality of it is that Mythos is like this whole, Dario comes out with these really inflammatory, hyperbolic things. And by the way, I'm going to go ahead and say this. I heard somebody else say, I personally really like Anthropic. I know a lot of people like to hate on them and everything else. If I were to choose a company I think is doing the right thing with AI, I really appreciate their position on it. I like their constitutional AI that they publish. By the way, that's the idea that you have this kind of overriding constitution that guides how your AI things are developed. They have these safety standards for what's a risk for you, and then when you have to do stuff in the marketplace, like when you need to red team, and if you're a small business owner, what are the risks to you? This is all the stuff that Anthropic's been doing work on. Dario, originally one of the guys who helped start OpenAI, and left and took all the people who cared about safety. I mean, honestly, that's what they did. All the people who cared about safety are no longer at OpenAI. They haven't been since Dario left. And he started Anthropic. Now, here's the thing. If you do believe that AI is going to come and destroy the world and eat 50% of jobs, which Dario said, I think, at Davos this year, if you believe that that's a thing, then you want Anthropic's hand on the tiller. You want to be investing in them. You want them to win the AI race because they're the only ones who really seem to care about security. But if you need to get a whole bunch of investors, then I want to also have that narrative be front and center. So if I leak information about an upcoming model, which changes everything, it's an inflection point. This is my movie voice, by the way, in case you're curious. It's not that great, but hey, I won't quit my day job. But the reality of it is that that's the narrative you want out there. You want to suck all the oxygen room. You want to say, no one is ready for this. Now, the question is that true? Nobody really knows for sure. Supposedly Mythos is being tested and red teamed by some people. And if once it is released, either it supposedly, now here's the thing. I've got to give a talk on cybersecurity, I think mid-May. And my talk, it's being changed based on this leak. Because I'm basically preparing the talk in a way so I can at least say, like, yeah, because I was going to say basically all these AI risks are really much ado about nothing. It's not that they aren't real. It's not that you can't use an agent and try to penetrate somebody's system and spin it on 24/7. It's that they really weren't that great. You know, they're good, but they're not perfect. And that's not true. There are some risks there, but we're not really seeing it materialize.
Okay, but you're talking about agents and security specifically, not just agents in general.
Yeah, agents and security. So here's the idea. So for a business owner, and we probably should have a next show. We should probably just talk about OpenClaw next show. Just talk about just bring that all together just so people have a common, because I think that'll come up as a reoccurring theme in the show as we continue. There's a whole bunch of articles on it. That being said, here's what agents are. Agents are basically a piece of computer code using Claude or powered by an AI thing that goes off and does stuff on its own. Mm-hmm. And you say, hey, go off and respond to all my emails for me and do all that. And you kind of give it carte blanche to do stuff. The challenge with it is that if this new AI model is really good at penetrating cybersecurity and defenses, then you could set up an evil agent to hack systems at scale if Mythos is to be believed. Okay, so my talk I'm giving in mid-May has had to change because originally I was going to talk about really your penetration point really is people. It's like you hack people. Social engineering's been a thing in cybersecurity for years. By the way, as a small business owner, your people are your weakest link. They really are. But if Mythos is to be believed.
If this is to be believed, then this measurably moves that agent concept forward.
I don't want to really engage in the hype cycle with it. I haven't seen it. I haven't reviewed it. From the stuff that's been reviewed, it supposedly is a game changer and really, really risky. It changes the attack space. So imagine if before people could really just come through your doors or windows. Mythos literally can bring a bulldozer through the front of your house. It's not like well, what are you going to do to defend it? Well, we got to dig a giant pit there, so the bulldozers can't get through. I mean, it really changes what we call Yeah, it's like how do you defend against it? And the answer is we don't know, but it's really good press if you're Dario, and I don't believe it was accidentally leaked. I'm not going to be a conspiracy theorist. I think it was intentional.
So what about Claude Code? You said you wanted to tackle these two things separate.
Claude Code looks like it might be a mistake. Okay. So here's why.
Okay. So we made a mistake, and then we're going to look like we made another mistake, but that second mistake was maybe intentional because that actually erases the first mistake.
Backwards. The accidental mistake happened the Friday before. The Claude Code one happened. So the accidental mistake happened the Friday before last. The accidental mistake happened the day before April Fool's Day. So there's people who thought oh, it's an April Fool's joke. I mean, it had a whole thing about there's a Tamagotchi called a buddy they'd built into Claude Code. So you could have your own Tamagotchi.
There's a whole bunch of stuff that it looks like it was flagged and ready for prime time, but they haven't released it yet.
We'll get your server set up if you want your own Tamagotchi, Jenny. Maybe we'll put it in the show notes. So you don't want to set up your own Tamagotchi? No. It's called a buddy. You can have it. Okay.
I forget to feed them.
So the second one, the problem with it is that what got leaked. Okay, two things. People misunderstand this. The underlying weights that power the AI model did not get released. Okay, this is not like I can go build my own Claude. No, you can't.
But
cannot.
But it is the source code for Claude Code,
Claude
correct?
Code, right?
Okay.
So it's a source code for Claude Code. It had a lot of interesting things. I think that this is a big windfall for OpenAI, and I guarantee you
Mm.
they have 100 people or 200 people at OpenAI, and that's all they've done. They've been chugging Red Bulls for the past 10 days and just digging through this, past 7 days, sorry. And they've just been digging through it. Because what OpenAI and Sam Altman really wants is they need an enterprise level. I mean, they have Codex, which is their version of GPT that's like Claude Code. Used it. It's good too. I like Claude Code because of their stance against the Pentagon. That's just me personally. I like that to match up. I like my politics to match up with the companies I'm using, and that's the thing. So that's me. But that being said, it looks like the other one is a leak, and because like at 3 a.m. in the morning, people were already cloning the repositories. For the business owners out there, that's the actual code. They were putting it somewhere else so it couldn't just be removed, and it got leaked. And the reality of this is what does this mean for business owners? Very little right now. It's like, I've heard people say, oh, gosh, I'm going to go build my own Claude Code. Okay, why? You're going to still run it with Claude, right? You're not going to use your lesser open Olama backseat sourced model that you're running out of your 386 at home or whatever it is, right? Sorry, that's I just dated myself, 386. But the reality of it is that I think the biggest windfall is the for business owners. I think it is kind of a cautionary tale.
I was about to say, hang on, let me jump in real quick. I was about to say this kind of sounds like regardless of Mythos, intentional or not, Claude Code being leaked was accidental. And if one of the largest AI companies on the planet can accidentally hand over their source code to their competitors, maybe the lesson or the takeaway for the rest of us business owners is that can happen on a much smaller scale. And this is more of a cautionary tale about your data, this is more of a cautionary tale about your data and who has access to it, who can push it out, who can share it, and then, or even better, who in your business is utilizing AI and perhaps is sharing your data in an insecure way that you don't know about and they don't even know about. So is this where this comes back to our keeping a human in the loop and being aware of
I would
your
like to do
data
a plug
governance
for
policies?
I would like to do an unashamed plug for the Buck Stops Here podcast. I just
Go for
finished
it.
an entire episode on
Take it away.
shadow governance, which goes in shadow AI, not shadow governance. That would be a different thing. I just want to do an unabashed plug right now for the Buck Stops Here. I just finished an episode on shadow AI, which explains how your secrets are leaving through your tabs and your browser tabs, not through somebody hacking your system. And then the next episode, which you just teed up for me, has to do with data governance. I think the big thing to take away for everybody is that 40% of the Fortune 500 don't have good data governance around AI use. About 80% of small and medium business owners, those businesses under like $300 million, have no policy dealing with data governance. And when those chickens come home to roost, you end up losing all of your stuff, all of your intellectual property, all of your trade secrets. They walk right out the front door because you haven't done the most basic things that are required. And that episode's going to go in practical AI governance for people on that. But I think if it can happen to OpenAI or it can happen to Anthropic, it can happen to you.
All right. And so for our audience, I just want you to give me just a baseline one-line sentence. Tell me, what does data governance mean? For everybody who's just stepping into this going, what the heck did he just say? What does that mean?
Data governance, one sentence. It's having the procedures and rules you follow, the keys in place, and the right procedures to follow to make sure things don't walk out your front door. To break it down in a home parlance, is telling your kids you set the alarm on the house and you lock the front door and you leave. That's the rule. Number 2, you show them how to set the alarm and you give them a key to the front door. And 3, you talk about what happens if someone does break into the house. If your kids come home and the front door is smashed open, do they go inside the house? Or do they go dial 911? Those are the kind of things, like if in case of emergency break glass,
It's
you
an
have to
SOP for AI.
understand. What's that?
It's an SOP for AI.
It's an SOP for AI, and most people, actually, I could say the vast majority of all businesses in the United States do not have one. We have some tools that we've been building to help people go through this. I do consulting on that with people right now. And the reality of it is people do not know how exposed they are, and they don't understand how dangerous this is, especially if you are a small company, because you don't have the ability to absorb the loss if it happens. Imagine if all your internal trade secrets just got leaked to all your competitors today. Would you still be in business tomorrow? And the reality of it is, for a lot of business owners, it would make things very, very difficult in closing deals, the road ahead, and everything else for the next 6 weeks. And I think that is where people are really in trouble. And why this has not been implemented. And by the way, you do need someone who knows about AI and understands what the problems are. Ask any business owner you know. If you're listening to this pod right now, go ask a business, say, do you have a written policy for how people use AI at your business? They'll just look at you blankly because they don't think it's a big deal. And until it's deleted a database for you, you ain't seriously using AI yet. And that's how I really feel about it. I'm very, very hard on this. That's when I come in, it's step one in consulting. I have to go through that first with people before we do anything else. We have to have rules of the road before you get behind the wheel of the car.
And a lot of times I see, like in some of the businesses I've talked to, SOPs are one of those things that they trip people up. Everybody knows that they need them. They know they've got a vision for what it'll look like and how it'll work. But oftentimes, especially in the small businesses, if it's just you and a few other people, it tends to get pushed aside as like, oh, I'll get to that later. I know how things work in my head. And there's all kinds of reasons why setting up your SOPs are incredibly vital for your business. But in this particular instance, getting it going with a policy around how you and your fellow employees and your business as a whole is going to handle AI, it's critical. And that's not even talking about how vital SOPs are for when you reach the end of your business life cycle and you're ready to sell your business. You need to have all these things in place. So just do future self you a favor, and we're going to start with that now. I do want to take this kind of concept with security and move into our last article, which is maybe one of the more controversial ones. Just because it deals with subject matters that we're all having to kind of get used to right now. Let's see, how do I want to bridge into this? So speaking of Anthropic versus OpenAI and their messaging and, what each company is putting out into the news cycle and what they're saying, we've got a little beef going on. Anthropic's CEO just straight up called OpenAI's messaging on their military deals straight up lies.
Okay. All right. There is okay. This is really funny.
Yeah.
Sam and Dario kind of hate each other right now.
You think?
They were at there was an AI summit. I want to say mid-February this year it was in New Delhi. It was in India. And at the summit, the guy was like, had all these like tech leaders on stage. They were trying to hold each other's hands. And Dario and like Sam were next to each other, and they would like not hold each other's hands. And they finally just ended up.
They're talking about unity, and they're like this far apart.
Yeah, you've seen this, right? It's like a bad joke. And the reality is there is no love lost there. They're incredibly, I would say awkward is a charitable way of saying how they're getting along right now.
I mean, they are straight up competitors. I mean, between the two of them, it's like whoever wins this wins everything. So why would they be friendly?
So, well, that's true too. I mean, that really is. And they also, I think, fundamentally have a difference of opinion on how we need to approach AI. One of them thinks the others is fundamentally dishonest. I'm not going to say who thinks that. And they'll say things kind of backbiting about each other. So I guess the question here is, so here's the challenge. So just for context for the listeners, the Pentagon was using Anthropic's AI models, and they used them in the raid in Venezuela, and they have a couple of major points. Number one, point number one is they said they want human in the loop. They do not want AI machines making decisions to terminate another human life without a human in the loop ultimately making that decision who is accountable for that decision.
This is Anthropic.
Anthropic.
Okay.
Okay. And that's number one. Number two is they do not want the AI being used for mass surveillance. And so the thing is, we have a whole bunch of, just an example, cameras. There's a whole bunch of data in the U.S. And you really can't have a cop on every corner and on every beat. You can't analyze every frame of video camera footage, every, whatever cam, etc. And the United States government with AI potentially can now. And the other thing about it is to realize that those costs will continue to, in theory, will continue to drop each year. And so in theory, small governments could probably do this in a couple of years. They don't want an endless surveillance state on Americans, right? This is really where it's at. And the Pentagon said, no, thank you. You can't tell us how you use your technology. And they have now declared Anthropic a supply chain risk, which a judge just kind of struck down, right? By the way, that's the first time in history that an American company has been, we use supply chain risk to put into foreign companies we're at war with, that kind of thing. This turns into politics, okay, et cetera. But that's kind of a problem. So, and by the way, it's not like they're just out. It's not, and this is where people get it wrong. They're like, how dare Anthropic tell the government they can't use, and Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, said, it's like, you can't tell me how I have to use my fighter jet. It's very different than a fighter jet. It just is. A fighter jet still has to have a human in the cockpit making that decision. This thing is, you're literally taking something. It's almost like, this is how Terminator happens, people. If you don't want Skynet, you want a human in the loop. You want a human being still responsible for making those decisions. Terminator, in case you don't know the show, go look up Arnold Schwarzenegger's famous movies. There's several of them now. Totally worth your time. It'll probably scare the heck out of you. But that is how you end up with hunter killers and Skynet. All right, that being said, OpenAI was like, immediately like, I'll be your Huckleberry. I will totally be glad to take over that role that Daria doesn't want. And by the way, it's not like they got to cut it off tomorrow. Anthropic still has to give the Pentagon like 6 months to gradually pull out of their systems. It's not like, and people I think get this wrong. They act like Anthropic said, no, I turned off the keys. No. They get to still use your stuff for 6 months in ways you don't like and don't allow. And OpenAI has been painting it like, well, we found the Pentagon to be kind of reasonable. They have some of the same concerns and restrictions. And what we have seen is a lot of people leaving ChatGPT. An increase of like 300% in cancellations for ChatGPT and going to Anthropic. So you could say, and by the way, it's the funny thing about it. This is the first time, I mean, I thought Disney would have stood up to the federal government. It's like the first time an actual company kind of stood up to the federal government in the past year and had the guts to say, yeah, that's a line too far. We're not going to do that. And this is actually, I don't want to sound like a fanboy for Anthropic, but I kind of am.
Well, I think the reason you're not going to hear Disney say anything is because Disney doesn't have, anybody else really only has an opinion on it, but Anthropic and OpenAI have a direct tie to what happens now. And when we see things occur that look very different military-wise than what we're used to seeing, and you start seeing groups of people being targeted, either foreign or domestic, and things happen, either it's a surveillance thing or if it's an unmanned drone, then tracking that back, that kind of lands squarely at OpenAI's doorstep and Anthropic's doorstep. What is done with that? So it's kind of, in some ways, nice to hear that one group of those two are saying, we're really not comfortable with this, and this is not how we see the thing that we created being used. I don't really know where to go from there, because I'm sure there's always going to be a competitor ready to step up and take that, government contract. But that's something for us as, I guess, citizens to think about and consider. I mean, if you are, and I'm not, let me be super clear. The potential for these things to get wildly out of hand is there. That does not mean that is the reality today. But if you've got a situation where you end up with, let's just say, massive amounts of domestic surveillance, how would any of us even know?
So here's the thing I want to say about that. For the businesses out there listening, you need to vet your AI vendors like strategic partners. Their corporate controversies or liabilities could become your company's PR nightmare. For example, if you make all your money off Facebook, we can talk about Meta and what happened, but Meta is responsible for potentially 1/3 of all the fraudulent ads to take advantage of Americans each year. But like, here's the thing. You have to figure out, do you want to be advertising? What do you want to be advertising on that platform? We saw that with YouTube a couple years ago. There was a whole bunch of really questionable stuff about ads and child predators advertising on Facebook, and then Disney and all these other people finally pull out. You have to figure out if you want to be associated with these bad actors, if they want to do things. And I think that is a question mark, right? It is. And I don't know how much this really affects small business owners, but I think most of us would like to know that our money is not going to a company that is not aligned with us, at least directionally, on what they do. And I think that's okay. I think it's important for business owners to know that, but I think you also need to think about the public relations type avenue on it, because there are real challenges with that moving forward for any company. It's just something to be aware of, and you have to understand. So let's say in this particular case, let's say you were using Anthropic, okay, and you were using Claude. If they actually get designated a supply chain risk and you have Department of Defense contracts, you can't use them anymore. So there's a lot here moving on, and it's a lot for a small business owner to think about, but these are things you should at least be aware of. Yeah. And I think a lot of business owners just aren't. They just aren't.
It feels like if I were to put a visual on it, it's like if we were a pond, or we're like in a pond, and it starts raining. You're going to see like little raindrops create big ripples, and then those ripples are going to start overlapping other ripples. And where I'm concerned about us as businesses and people and humans is that we're caught up in all those ripples, and they're just happening around us. So it's not so much like the hype cycle of all this is over. We are squarely in a messy new operational reality of entrepreneurship and running a business. I mean, you've got high schoolers becoming millionaires because they are able to take to this technology in a way that a 40-something-year-old might struggle with. So when we look at these tools and whatnot, are there opportunities for individuals, whether you own a business or not, to influence the direction of some of this? Or is it a situation where we're simply in a boat on an ocean and we have to learn how to navigate the changing tides?
I really like the idea of a surfboard better than a boat.
Oh, good.
This is a wave that is coming in, and you can either catch the wave, you can be really cool and ride in that pipe and impress all the people on shore, or you can wipe out. And I think for a lot of business owners, it's a little different. It's moving, and I like the wave idea because it is moving so quickly. You don't have a lot of time to pivot and get your board and to paddle into the thing. And by the way, if you've ever gone surfing, try to do it. It's great. Recommend it for everybody.
There's that pull. There's the pull as the wave is building. Yeah.
And you have to understand, I think it's a little bit like a force of nature. Do I think it's important to tell people about the waves? Do I think it's important to let people know about the waves? Let them catch it with you? I think there's a ton of opportunities in here. But I think in navigating it, I think you need to have a surfboard. You need to be ready to stand up and surf. I need to be ready to catch it. And I think that's one of the big things. I think building a strategy around this, I mean, that's exactly what, Virginia, that's exactly what we do.
Yeah, no,
so
hang
I guess
on. No. We're
Go ahead.
we're the orange flag. We're the ones talking about watch out for the riptide. If you get caught in a riptide, swim diagonally. Don't swim against it. Don't try to fight it. There's ways to get around it. Like, oh, I am all about these ocean metaphors. I'm a beach girl.
True. I think what we really want to say here is that if you're looking for good advice on this, follow AI the podcast. Give us 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Give us feedback on YouTube, a thumbs up. We'd love to hear from you. But every week we're going to be coming to you and bringing you actionable intelligence and breaking down the biggest articles of the week in a way that is digestible and actionable for you as a business. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can reach us at aithepodcast.com. You can reach me at davidmaples.com, virginiahuling.com, and you can reach out for consulting or operational help on what you're doing. We build tools, we work in these industries, and if you want a keynote, I'd love to hear from you. So with that, Jenny, you want to close this out?
All right, everybody, that's been our show for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining us. We are so excited to be back and looking forward to doing more of these. I've been one of your hosts, Virginia Huling.
And I've been David Maples.
Please make sure to like and subscribe so that you don't miss any future updates.
And tune in next week. So we'll bring to you all the news you need to know about AI technology and how to grow your business in a short 1-hour episode. Thank you.
See you next time.